Episode 3, like, subscribe. This is the Quality Question Podcast, and today you want to figure out now in respects to culture, organization level, how we can go deeper and see how we can build the aspect of QA. With me today, as usual, I'm part of your co-host. Brian is my name, together with my usual co-host.
My good name is Bronson Smith, and today we are graced in our episode with one of the best QA engineers that I know of. I think he'll introduce himself.
Okay, thanks Bronson, thanks Brian for having me. My name is Thomas Njoroge. I've been QA professionally for 6 years, but I've been in QA and testing throughout my entire life. And I'm looking forward to the conversation that we are about to have here. Yeah.
Entire life, are you testing waters?
No, I think the first thing that you do the immediately you are born is to start testing out your lungs. So that's why you cry, so that you can see if they are functioning or not.
Awesome.
Yeah. Someone told me it was because of the temperature. You feel like where I'm coming from.
Just but I think that usually is the work of a doctor. You know, the one who tests, the doctor who tests you to see whether you're breathing in.
No, the doctor tests when you fail to cry. That's when he starts testing to actually have
Okay, let's not deviate.
Yeah. So in respects to that, and you've been within that, I've sat in developer sessions of right from planning, feature engineering, sat with the BA, the business analyst, trying to come up with the mockers, everything, and developers coming in saying like, we are designing this, but if I want to achieve this page, it will look like a city hop or something, yeah? And then within that conversation, you usually realize, towards the tail end, you remember, okay, we need to have a last paragraph about beta, alpha testing, or just acceptance testing, and how we can go about. Is that usually the norm of the trade? And you being on that other side of QA, usually think like we bring you as an afterthought or something?
Yeah, I think for a long time when it comes to software development, QAs have been brought as an afterthought. Like towards the tail end of a project is when most product managers, project managers remember, you should have had QA straight from the beginning. But essentially, QA should have been involved straight from the requirements gathering phase to the planning and all that. That way, QA is able to identify where issues might come up earlier in the software development process, other than just waiting towards the tail end, and now all the pressure is on QA to actually deliver on a software that is bug-free, but they are just beginning to understand what even the software is about.
Talking about understanding, now what will be the tight gap between, in that perspective, between QA and let's say the feature owners? Should the QA now assume to be a feature owner and more bring the discussion with the product owner, the trajectory where the product is passing, is heading or something?
Yeah. In that context, what the QA is bringing is that quality aspect, because most of the time with project managers and software developers, they mostly focus on fast delivery. But even as we focus on fast delivery, we don't want to forget about the quality aspect. So when you involve QA early, you start having that missing part of the discussion that was not there, which is now on quality.
And there's one thing that we mentioned about there's a need to involve QAs just even from the beginning, that's requirements gathering, maybe to the architecture, and maybe perhaps threat modeling. So which part and which role does now a QA supposed to be involved in requirements gathering and maybe the solution architecture and maybe threat modeling? Maybe perhaps elaborate more for my understanding, even for our viewers' understanding, that what critical role, what is it, like the hands-on, what is he or she supposed to do during maybe requirements gathering, and now maybe going to solution architecture, be it threat modeling when it comes to security. What are these things that he or she does in all these stages of software development?
Okay, yeah, so when you're looking at SDLC, when you're doing, let's start with the requirements gathering phase. In that phase, you are trying to identify what is it that you need to do. Let's say, for example, a client has come and told you, let's use an example of this laptop.
Yeah.
They have told you they want a laptop that does A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
So when QA is coming in, they are looking at these are the requirements that the client wants, and once we have built this, what are the things that we actually need to test out to ensure that everything is working as expected. So in those earlier phases, what QA starts doing is actually now start drafting the test plan, breaking down the scenarios that are there. And actually in those earlier phases, even before development begins, they have already handed out like a checklist for developers for things that they should now involve in maybe their unit tests. So that by the time you are getting to the testing phase, what maybe QA will focus mostly on are the edge cases, things that maybe were not factored in during that planning phase. Because as you are going on with the project, you realize maybe there are things that they are changing requirements, there are new things that maybe you had not thought about. So like those edge cases is now where mostly the testing phase of SDLC. Now, those are the things that QA will factor in. But now for the normal things, the functional things, during the planning phase, QA should already have those defined so that everyone knows what is it that we want to do quality-wise.
Yeah. Speaking about the planning phase, in the requirement gathering phase, what are like the 3 questions that QA usually asks during that session?
Maybe some of the questions that QA will ask during the requirements gathering phases. The first one is what the expectation is, because if you are coming up with a new software, you must understand what do you want it to do, like what do you want it to do. Then you start asking questions maybe related to things such as non-functional things such as performance, privacy, security, such things. Also maybe something else that QA could ask during this phase is now things such as to do with the timelines, like how are we going to do our testing, like do we want it to do it like feature wise, or do we want like to first have like the whole system built and then tested, and then now, based off those questions is now where QA gives an input. Because, for example, if you are working in an agile environment that does fast delivery, you definitely don't want to wait for the phase whereby you do the whole system test all at once. You want to start bit by bit. A functionality is complete, QA is there to actually test it out, so that even by the time you are getting to the integration side, most of the bugs have actually been captured earlier. And probably to add on, there's also something on documentation testing as well. Like just ensuring that in the requirement and planning phase, whatever has been put on the documentation actually makes sense. And making sense in terms of like the requirements that are there are actually things that are implementable, and their gaps are able to be identified earlier in maybe how like the architecture has been put. Yeah. And
does that ever had brought conflict between the user experience people and
the user experience in terms of
the QA says based on these documents, some things doesn't look like functional and everything. But now the business analysts, they're like, the goal we're trying to solve, this must be done. And as you just answered that, maybe I'll have a follow-up question on that. So have you ever had such a conflict, let's say the business analyst comprising of the UX people and people actually working to get the requirements from the client, and then you come like, these can't make sense.
Yeah, so those ones are very common. At any given point, there will always be those conflicts on QA saying this, the business side saying this, because let me give an example of fast shipping environment.
Okay.
So QA on one hand says, based on what we have done, a full regression test that will achieve stability will take 1 week. The business side is, we need to ship this in 2 days. So there's always that conflict, and the best way to actually do it is now to sit down with the business side of things and explain why we want to take maybe a whole week to do the regression, and why you are actually doing it, because in some cases there might be things that the business side is not seeing. So let's say, for example, you are introducing a lot of new features at once. So on the business side, they are not seeing that the risk that is actually involved, because if you are introducing a lot of new features at once, there'll be integration conflicts, integrating everything all at once. So you need to do a whole regression of that thing. The other thing is, maybe you are trying to introduce maybe a new system, and it's interfacing with an old architecture. So there are things such as testing backward compatibility and all that. So yeah, so
and now, based on that, just a second, on the follow-up question,
Yeah.
you talked about the duration of time and everything. How do you bring, let's say, the directorship or the C-suite level buy-in to include even within the policy? Like, QA is a fundamental aspect when you're going forward. How can you convince the C-suite?
yeah, so that one is now comes, QA has to define the risks, and it's actually the quality risk, because if you want to ship something, there is no need for you to ship it fast and then it goes and fails in production, because one, you lose, there'll be a cost involved. Let's say, for example, you are working on a system that deals with payments, and as I mentioned earlier, the C-suite wants it now and then. QA says, given this is payments, this is the scope that we have of things that we actually need to work on quality-wise. So you have to show that if we don't do this, what are the risks that we have in terms of costs? Because if it's a payment thing and someone is able to actually send money, or let's say, for example, withdraw from the account and they don't have any balance, then that will actually impact the business, and the whole idea of shipping fast won't make any sense.
So you mentioned a couple of team dynamics when it comes to testing and everything.
Yeah.
So my question will be, when it comes to agile teams or DevOps teams,
Yeah.
now who really owns quality? Maybe to avoid those conflicts where C-suites want these, business the analysts want these, then maybe the testers on board, they're doing their own thing, developers want this. Who really owns now in such a scenario? Who really owns quality?
So the whole idea of having shift left and QA is to actually ensure that they pass on that message that everyone should own quality, because
so it's more of a team responsibility.
Yeah, it's a team responsibility. Owning quality is a team responsibility. Everyone has to own quality in whatever they are doing, because you'll realize, like, traditionally, devs would do things without actually factoring that quality aspect, and because there is someone down the channel who will actually do the testing for them. So you realize, in that case, testing takes a lot of time, and especially if it's manual, because even obvious bugs will be popping up, because no one actually looked into them when they were actually doing the development. Let's say, for example, if it was also on the side of projects whereby they were breaking down the requirements now into tasks and logging them on a task tracking system. So you realize if at all during that stage there was no traceability matrix that was set by QA of actually having each requirement mapped onto a test scenario, then in that case you'll find there are some requirements that have actually been missed out.
Yeah.
So everyone at that point thinks that we have done everything, but at the tail end you realize, oh, there was this requirement that was not captured now as part of the task. So like, in terms of quality, it's everyone involved in any project should actually own a bit of quality.
So it will be right to say that in each cycle, whichever software methodology, development methodology you use, quality and testing applies across. It cuts across.
Yeah, it cuts
just like documentation.
Yeah, it cuts across everyone because if you put it as something that just one person owns, then you miss the whole point of actually shipping quality.
Yeah. So this thing of building, then now look for a PA coming out, test things, doesn't make sense, or you not ship a quality product.
So the moment you don't have QA engineers involved, you're also slowing down your process. Because if you actually wait for once you are done is when you are starting to look for a QA team to come in. There's obviously a learning path, learning to
understand
the product and all that. So you end up losing a lot of time. And then if you also don't involve QA, the impact of the cost that will happen once you ship that would be a lot, because you realize in most cases when you involve QA, there are a lot of bugs that are actually slip into production. Unlike when you involve early, because when you involve late, of course you'll give them timelines. You'll tell them, I want this in 1 week. So that 1 week they have to study the product, test, log any bugs. They don't have enough time for regression, and especially if even an automation suite is completely missing. So chances of bugs is very high.
You spoke about shift left, and probably have given us we'll have to call out this podcast shift left in respect to that. What is the kind of tool set for a team that is actually properly implementing shift left? What's the tool set composition?
I would say there are any tools, because shift left is actually a mindset. It's a mindset that everyone within any project, any organization needs to know.
It's more philosophical.
It's more of like a philosophy.
Okay, what's the foundational level to it, let's say?
It's involving quality at the start. It's the start of anything. Just ensure you have someone who is checking on quality. Start of any process, start of any new project that's coming up, you have a QA engineer there. Because the difference between that and traditional is, for traditional, you would have maybe a business analyst, a product manager, a product owner, a project manager, and devs. Maybe someone on the security side of things. And then they would be involved in meetings straight from the start so you'll find those Scrum meetings straight from the start will involve like those key people. Then at the tail end, once everything has been done, then that is now where they go back to get a QA person and tell him like, this is the documentation that we have, this is the product that we have built. Then go forward. And
since more philosophical and it's involving culture,
it's culture.
There's always a buy-in for the people, but it needs an involvement, let's say, from the leadership, let's say the directorship, to actually inculcate this. What are kind of the metrics that you can use for the leadership to buy into the culture?
So one of the things that we need to buy in the culture is actually find most organizations or most companies that deal with software development, they lack a test policy. So every org should have a test policy document that actually defines what should be done whenever any new feature or product is being built. So you'll find that maybe what is usually there and policies on other things such as development, such as security, but there is a lack of that test policy, because that test policy is now what involves things such as the test strategy, and then the QA teams can borrow from that test strategy to build their own test plans and all that. So at that management level, it's just for them to ensure there is a test strategy that is there, and in that test strategy, it's defined that before anything can start, you need to have that quality aspect or quality person involved.
And why will it not only be good on paper, but actually utilizable? Is it aspect of team incentivization to actually borrow to it, or how do you inculcate that to ensure that the policy is just not good on paper? Yeah, because some might say if it's to incentivize the team, it looks like maybe a bribery for them to do better.
I don't think, from my stand, I don't think there should be any incentives for that, because it's actually that's something that should be there. It should be like part of the culture. Like everyone knows that whenever we are doing anything, we must have, and this specifically for software companies, we must have like that QA engineer there. It's like an non-negotiable. It's just like you can't go to a meeting to build a software and you don't have a software developer engineer there. So it's something that should be a code. Yeah. No, you can't. We'll get to vibe coding later. So like it should be like, this is the checklist, like these are the people we need to have on each project. It's not an afterthought. It's not like something you want. Yeah. So it must be there. So, and if a project is missing that, then for whoever was like the project manager of that project, they have already missed now. They already missed out on
milestone.
Yeah, on a milestone, on a KPI on their side, because they must ensure that they are the ones who actually.
So, from my understanding, the way as you are answering Brian's question, it looks like the shift left philosophy is trying to solve a perceived problem of maybe, let's say, not even maybe, a perceived problem with traditional QA. Right? So do you think traditional QA is too late, or we, with shift left mindset, or rather philosophy, we are oversimplifying the traditional QA?
I think you have mentioned about oversimplifying.
Yeah.
So I would say, let me go back to the point you have mentioned on vibe coding.
Yeah.
So you realize that maybe how you are doing software before now, it's being done now in the age of AI is completely different. Because you'll find there are a lot of vibe coders out there. And actually those vibe coders have now actually increased the demand for QA engineers. Because most vibe coders don't even understand like the architecture. All they do is prompt, and they don't actually review their code once they have done it. So now that brings the aspect now of if you have now QAs early, this person, because we don't want to traditionally we do it at a system level, because most people, there was not that bit of vibe coding. People would actually work on the code like properly, and maybe probably use Stack Overflow
for an app vote, try to test the code.
Yeah, but right now we don't want a case whereby you have vibe coded a whole solution, whole solution, out payment system, and then now is when you are giving it to QA
to test.
That means if the code base is big, there is a lot of gibberish and hallucinations within that code, which would actually now lead to a lot of issues. So that's why you want to start it earlier.
Oh, nice. So basically, in a nutshell, what I'm gathering is everyone to enforce TDD, test-driven design. Probably from our new studio, you see today we have the application testing security, automated software testing, a bit of software development, which I'm hiding on that. And someone will be wondering, when you are doing maybe something like this imagery thought process, what does AI assisted testing come into play in the test driven nature?
Automated software testing.
But now in respect to the look, someone seeing a robot and is like, okay, you need to tell me about AI assisted testing. So,
robotic testing.
Yes.
Yeah, so when it comes to AI-assisted testing, one of the ways that is actually helping QAs is actually ensuring that they are able to, one, get to write test cases faster. Because let's say, for example, you have the requirements documentation, you have the architecture documentation and all that. So with that, you can actually be able to break down test scenarios faster using AI, like just giving the model those documents and then just asking it to reference to give you a breakdown of the test scenarios and test cases and all that. The other bit is when it comes to the automation part, there are things such as MCPs that have been built to interface with automation frameworks such as Playwright. So it means that maybe work that would take you days to actually write script can now be done in a few hours, because you already have AI agents that can actually do that for you. So those are some of the ways. Another one is now maybe when it comes to what is it called? When it comes to things such as code review. Let's say, for example, you are a QA who actually has to go through the code to ensure that there are things that have been met, maybe things such as linting, comments, like how even the code is structured and all that. So you can use AI to actually get that done very, very fast. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. As we wind up, producer tells me that you can go to camera 2 and just talk about one of the things that we usually do here is actually, and that is based on our sponsors here, Technobrain. Other than what you're seeing and everything, we always talk about building test centers and even help out organization to build test centers. And since you're talking about the culture, leadership buy-in, why they need a test center and actually work in unison in respect to other teams. So in your parting short remarks on camera 2, you can just give us a perspective of what it entails, right from the right personnel to bring in the tooling and make, let's say, the center to fruition. That's a test center, and here you go.
Okay, yeah. So when it comes to like just that whole aspect of setting up a test center and setting up QA for any project that you have, you must ensure that all those all those roles are actually involved, whereby you have the QA, you have the developers, you have the product owners, you have the project managers and business analysts tackling the business side. So even as you build a test center, it should not be like a dust result for you. It should be actually you bringing in QA engineers who are actually involved straight from the start. You don't want a situation whereby you just have maybe a team of testers who just have to wait wait for things to be developed and then placed on their end for them to work on it. So shift left is a mindset, and it also involves everyone just owning quality on their end. It's not just about the QA team or the testing team owning quality. Everyone should own quality. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Thomas. In case you're wondering if some look gibberish in respects to setting up a testing center and everything, don't scratch your head much trying to actually GPT all kind of document, architecture flow, policy coming into place. You can just visit us. That's one of the things that actually do give you a full overview walkthrough what you need right from the start. That is the inception phase, the kind of human capital that you actually need for the skill composition. And that from then, we can see how the culture can be built and everything. It's been a nice session. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us with that.
In case, Thomas, someone wants to reach out and maybe have more conversation, to further the conversation here, where can someone reach out to you?
Yeah, so in case you want to have a further conversation, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Mwangi Joroge, or on Twitter at Mwangi NN. Yeah.
Okay. It's been a pleasure. Till next time. Boom. Adios.
Episode 3. Subscribe, like.